Welcome to another installment of the Mindful Endeavors podcast. Joining us now is Anthony Rodriguez. So really quick, just to make sure that everybody keeps in mind that we are not necessarily health professionals. We're just here to talk about mental health and a nuanced discussion from just the perspective of two normal people, just living our lives every day and what we see and what we experienced. Also, we're trying to tie the elements of the outdoors to see if maybe that could serve as a coping mechanism as well as other things. But yeah, just keep that in mind. All right. So Anthony, I've known you since, I don't know, middle school. It's been a long time since we've had a chat. Yeah. But quickly, just kind of describe more or less like what do you do? Like, what are your hobbies, things like that?
So I'm a serial entrepreneur, I guess you could say. I started a couple businesses, juggling those. As far as hobbies, I like working out, just being out in the outdoors, getting some fresh air. I mean, I'm here in California, you're going to say. So as far as fresh air, I mean, not too much of that right now with all these fires going on. But
yeah.
I have a couple businesses. I own a car dealership. I just started a watch company, and I guess you could say I put a couple videos on YouTube in regards to like what I do for business. So I have a family. So I have two kids, a lovely lady here. We're a nice little family. But as far as hobbies, I like working out, playing basketball, lifting weights. I'm not like you, like Jocko Willink in the mornings, 5 a.m. working out, but, I get it in.
It's hard to really keep that up, man. There's a couple days like per week that I just fall asleep, and it depends really on work. Like if I have to work late one day, then I'll sleep in and I'll just go like an hour right before work. But yeah, actually that, you bring up a good point. Like you started a couple businesses. So that's kind of why I wanted to have you because, it's not necessarily an outdoors topic, but it does contribute to mental health, which is financial health. I mean, that is definitely a factor. And that's kind of the reason why like I want to keep having these discussions because mental health is not just one specific thing contributing to it. It's a lot of things. And sometimes they could be in the least amount of like the least of magnitude. And then sometimes they're really, really serious. Like, for example, the loss of a job. Like we've seen that a lot in COVID, during that time. And, it's tough times. And I mean, I kind of like was already building up to doing this podcast even before COVID because with any issue that you see on TV, on the news, I feel like there's definitely a mental health aspect to it. And it just doesn't get talked about. It just gets tossed aside. So, yeah, I mean, and like you and I, we both grew up in LA. So, and we've been back there recently. I actually was there this past weekend, and I cannot recognize it from the way I grew up. Like, we talk about we're gonna talk about the homelessness ish situation there. I mean, when I grew up. No politics. Definitely no politics. We're going to keep that political free as much as possible. When I remember when I grew up, you knew Skid Row, and that was like where most of the homelessness was concentrated around. Like, it existed, but it was around there. But now, even you look at a couple cities going into downtown LA, you see a bunch of tents on the freeways, on the overpasses, under the overpass, everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's what do you like? How, a lot of people think they have a solution, but I'm kind of curious as to your opinion and what you think about all that.
Yeah, that's such a complex issue. The growing homeless population is a real big issue. I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are fleeing California or leaving California, all the celebrities and like that. But it's just. Now there's an increase in lawlessness and homelessness, but the homelessness issue there's multiple layers to that. There's three different kinds of homeless. You got the mentally ill, then you have the drug addicted people, and then you have just people who financially couldn't make it and they're homeless.
Yeah.
I was driving. I was doing a little Uber job for a while back, and a lot of deliveries I noticed were to hotels, and you'd find whole families living in hotels, especially in Orange County, where basically a lot of people that are functionally broke. They might have good paying jobs, but maybe because they can't afford the rent, they're still broke, they're barely making it.
Yeah.
So you see that a lot. Like those people are, there's nothing wrong with them. They're mentally, fine, but they just can't afford to live in California. And then on the other side, you have the people with drug addictions, and then you have the actual mentally ill people, and just the growing populations like around LA. Like I said, it used to just be Skid Row, and then now it kind of grew, and then now you have other cities that are just known as like homeless population centers, and it's crazy. Like my brother's an electrician, and he's told me he's for the next couple months, until maybe till January, he's working 7 days a week because they're setting up a temporary housing facility for homeless people in Santa Ana, and yeah, they're trying to have a location that fits 5,000 people, and it's like there's 5,000 homeless people just roaming around Santa Ana, California, and just like that's not even all of it. There's so many more homeless, and the number is growing. So I don't know how you deal with something like that.
It's very tough, man. I mean, because like you said, like there's multiple factors. There's like you just named three. There could be more like that we haven't really like discussed and we haven't figured out. But like a lot of people will say like they'll say like, well, LA is unique because it has great weather. That's why there's a lot of homeless people there. But when you look at other cities like Portland, Seattle, like I was in Seattle last November. Well, this past November, I was over there, and I mean, the entire downtown Seattle has homeless people all over the place. There's little like camps set up. There's people just just passed out just with blankets and stuff. So, I mean, it's very, very obvious that there's a huge also a huge
Seattle,
problem there.
right? Seattle, they have a higher rents up there too, right? There's a higher, a little more expensive up there, right?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely more expensive in the city of Seattle. But what I was referring as like the whole thing about it being a problem in LA. I mean, again, I'm trying to be careful not to talk about politics, but the whole thing about being a problem to LA because of weather is not necessarily true. Like, Seattle, again, it gets really cold out there. When I was over there, it was freezing. I mean, at least by California standards, it was freezing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, it's really tough because like a lot of people, I mean, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I know a lot of people that I've talked to, like they know that, it's an issue, but they don't want to see it. Right. That's kind of like why, like, it's like, well, it kind of gets away from the nuance because of the fact that, people don't want to talk about it. And it's a very sensitive subject. Like, I mean, specifically when we're talking about mental health, like, it's really tough because, like, you look at, like, what happened with COVID, there was a lot of, like, people that were financially sound going into COVID. And then once COVID happened, boom, like, it was like the foundation was just, taken off directly from their feet. So, I mean, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, like in terms of like, what we can do now to set ourselves up so we can be as best prepared as possible. I was fortunate to be able to work from home. Other people were not. So, I mean, you kind of like as a business person, like what are the things that you're trying to do in terms of like to keep you on your toes and making sure that you're always prepared and like financially?
So I went the entrepreneurial route just based off of I don't know, working for someone, I just couldn't stick it out. Like I had a government job. I used to work for Orange County, and I had a nice 9 to 5. Pay was good. I had healthcare benefits. Like life was good. Life was good. I did that for 3 years, but I just could not see myself behind a desk. Like it was driving me crazy. Like I was thinking, man, I want to throw myself down some stairs. I can't fit in this cubicle. It's just not the life for me. So I did whatever it took to start side businesses so I could transition out of the 9 to 5 to have my own business. So that's when I started my own car dealership. And from there, I was cool with that. But more recently, this whole COVID-19 thing has shown me that, in order to survive, you need to have multiple sources of income. Like you look at all these big, rich billionaires and they have multiple businesses. Elon Musk he's a serial entrepreneur. That guy has so many businesses going.
Oh yeah.
You look at that and you're like, okay. And on that scale, he's doing it. So I mean, me, I'm just a simple guy. I could start a couple of business here and there. Like that was my main. That's how my eyes have been open. So, but yeah, my first summer job is where I first got the idea. Like, oh, I can start working for myself, making my own money, and it's just so rewarding to do something and you get paid like that. Someone gives you cash in your hand. Not someone gives you a check, like thanks for your work here. Like it felt more fulfilling.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I've opened my eyes to that. I need to be more financially literate. I need to know what's going on with the stock market. You know, people used to hear about the stock market, like what really is going on. Like, how are people making money? Like, how can I learn?
Yeah.
So I basically started reading books, and I dipped my toe in the stock market. You know, the little Robinhood app, and I bought a couple stocks. I bought Apple, and what else? I think I bought like Microsoft, and a couple of little stocks, and I made a little money. I mean, I'm still learning, but it's a long journey. Some people do that full time. For me, I just want to dip my toe, understand what's happening, and then use that as another investment tool, another source of income. But yeah, I think one thing that everyone should be more aware of is like how, like you said, you have your job, you're able to work. A lot of people, their only source of income just got taken away, and they're sitting at home, and they got one stimulus check went out for $1,200, and I mean,
It's not
if you've been
enough.
working like 8 months, you're not going to survive with $1,200 in 8 months. It's just not 9 months. I don't know how long we're in, 9 months. Yeah, you can't survive on 1,200. Like, you have to have multiple sources of income.
And the thing is, like, that $1,200 is not necessarily the same for everybody. Like, for somebody in California, like where we're at, $1,200, not even a month's rent in a lot of places,
Yeah.
And yeah, like if you look at certain spots, like maybe out here in Texas, like, yeah, that'll cover a 1 month rent, or something, like, but like you said, it's not enough. Like, and the thing is, from like, in terms of a financial standpoint, like, we both like to watch the Joe Rogan podcast, and he brought the, what is it, Peter Schiff, and he was talking about how, like, when we went through the Great Depression in the 1930s, the reason why a lot of people were able to pull out was because they had savings. Where nowadays, inflation is so high and expenses are so high that it's kind of harder to, stash away a little nest egg to survive these type of situations. And then again, I mean, who would have predicted basically a pandemic to strike? Like, no one.
Yeah.
You know.
On this scale, yeah.
So, and like the whole thing with like the homeless population, back in, I think, as of January of this year, it was estimated, or at least counted, to about 60,000 people in LA. And I think since that year, it went up. Well, that was already like a 12% increase, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going up higher even more because people are like, like they're losing their homes, they're losing their businesses, and it puts a lot of stress on the mind. Because, like, especially if you're like the sole provider, like whether it's guy or girl, you're the sole provider, like, and you lose that job, then the whole entire family is, going to be struggling, right? And I just,
businesses too, like restaurants. If you own a restaurant, your restaurant's gone. Like, if you own a nail salon, if you own a barbershop, I mean, you still have to pay your rent, and you can't work, you can't cut hair or do nails. Your business is gone. So that's homeless people right there. That's crazy, but especially here with the restrictions that have in California. I think it's probably one of the most strict states. As far as like Texas, you guys are a little bit more lax compared to California, right?
yeah, I mean, things, I mean, we were one of the first few states to start opening up, like, before the initial, like, after the initial wave. And then right now we're kind of just like at a standstill. We're slowly starting to open back up. But yeah, so it's a bit, I mean, people at the very least are still working here for to some degree. Like, they found like certain loophole, like bars found certain loopholes by like serving food to be able to stay afloat. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's clever. Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta figure a way. You gotta find a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that I did preach about in an episode of, what is it, prior, that I filmed, is that we need to like be better adapted to like do with a little bit and stretch it out like a lot, I'm cutting out. Oh, damn. Yep, you're completely frozen. All right, give us a second. So we're going to try to get this back on. I apologize to those that are listening. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a little bit of spotty internet, and not sure why this is going on right now. Okay, you're slowly coming back.
Damn, that's not that bad.
I'm not sure if it's me though. I think it might be you.
Might be me. All right, I'm sorry. So you were saying that we need to learn to adapt.
Yeah, like we need to. So one important skill that I think is great, just in every aspect of life. I think. I mean, me personally, as my personal opinion, is just being able, like the whole thing with like being able to stretch out every single penny. Right? You can apply that to a lot of different things. Like, for example, right now, like I'm just kind of struggling just because of the change in temperature with fishing. So I have I make sure that whenever I go on one fishing trip, if I catch multiple fish, I'll take pictures of each fish, but I'll only slowly release like one picture at a time and stuff. That way I have other like, pictures that are not necessarily like on my Instagram or on my social media. But even though they were like way back in the past, like maybe like 2 weeks, prior, I can release them still. So I can still keep the content flowing. Right.
Got it.
Things like that. Like, I mean, kind of a weird example because it doesn't translate so much into finance, but I mean, like, there's different things that we can do, like just like meal prepping, like, and best because the gym and everything, like, you figure out to meal prep, like how can you reuse like a piece of chicken in different ways so you don't get bored? Because if you get bored, you tend to like shop around because you want something different or something like that, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's definitely a good skill to have, and I definitely think like to what you were saying that having multiple streams of income kind of plays into that because it's like. I mean, even though like, all right, well, maybe like for example, like me and my YouTube videos and all that stuff, maybe that only gets me like $100 a month. Okay, well that's food. If I can budget it right, it can last me 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right.
So that'll pay for 2 weeks worth of food. That frees up other income to start investing in other stuff and other things like that, right? So I think I don't know. I think overall, it'd be worth kind of like researching. I mean, we do have the internet, which is almost like free to a certain degree because it's pretty cheap, relatively speaking. Of course, I mean, obviously, it's not one size fits all, but we can just start researching how to make money, how to do this. Just the key thing is just to make sure we don't fall into some kind of like business scam, right? So, yeah.
I think like there's so many ways. I was this kind of weird fantasy, but I was fantasizing making like a how-to video, like how to get out of being homeless. Like if I was a homeless person, I had nothing going, like nothing. How would I, get from step one to step two, from A to B? Like how would I get a little money in my pocket and then grow from there? I think there's even a show called I forget what it's called, but it's basically about this billionaire dude. It's a TV show, and he explains how he creates a multi-million-dollar company in like 30 days or something like that. And he starts off with just him and his truck, and he's sleeping in his truck. And from there, he gets a job. And from that job, he stashes away a little bit of money and starts a side business. And then he grows that side business to fund another business. And then I guess within 30 days or something like that, he's supposed to create a multi-million-dollar company. And he's a billionaire. So, like, he already knows the know-how, like, what to do. But actually, I don't know why I didn't check that show out. But just the concept of it sounds pretty interesting.
Well, also remember, I don't know why that just triggered a memory from like middle school. Like, remember when you used to like lend me your lunch money? That way I can play quarters and I would return your investment like, it was like twice, 3 times as much or something like that. Like every single time.
That's an investment. There you go.
I still have the yearbook entry, like the one that you wrote for me. You were like, whatever, have a like good year or whatever. And then it's like, you were always a good investment. And I was like, dude, I'm going to keep that forever, dude. That's still stashed away somewhere, dude. And it's, dude, like, I think, but looking back on it, like the only reason why I was like so behind on doing something, because I just, I've told you like what I'm trying to do in terms of like the businesses that I'm trying to open. I think a lot of it came from a place of complacency.
Oh yeah.
That's how it goes. Yeah. I was working, like you said, 9 to 5, and like you had your government job where you're taken care of. I had my private sector job where I was also taken care of, and I just figured, well, I have my house now, I have my family safe, I have my sports car that I've always wanted. I'm good. But it's like then I start kind of into like fishing and like other different hobbies, and I'm trying to like I'm like, all right, well, I'm basically paying this much for my house, this much for my car, this much for other utilities. If I really want to live the life that I want to live, I need to have some other, sources of income. And also, most importantly, too, like, I mean, even once you have additional streams of income, it's also important that we should not necessarily depend that they'll always be there, right?
Right.
So, it goes back to like doing a lot with a little, like just pretend like if you're still making your base salary and just, every once in a while, plan a vacation, plan a hiking trip, plan something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do. I mean, I don't know if you go hiking, like, do you go, like, you go hiking a lot. Like, that is something that's kind of relatively cheap, right? Like, you can just go,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, maybe the worst you have to pay is parking or gas.
Parking, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, even the beach, too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you gotta pay parking, that's it. Yeah, but you can go to the beach. Like this outdoors is a lot of outdoors is free. You can just enjoy the outdoors, like that fresh air. Even speaking of COVID, like they talk about how like a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. A lot of these vitamins, a lot of this stuff, just by being outside, you naturally get it.
Yeah.
And people are stuck in their homes and going crazy in their homes when if getting some fresh air, some sunlight would be good for your mental health, and your physical health. And that's not really reported as much.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of there's some people that can deal with being stuck indoors, forever, right? There's some people that can do that, but I think generally speaking, a lot of people are not meant, and we're not necessarily built as humans to be like that. We're kind of more built to like go out and like you can tell too because I mean, if you're sitting around all day at your desk, you're gonna stiffen up like really bad, and then you have health problems. Like I think they declared what is it? Sitting down at your desk is the new smoking, which is like,
Oh man,
it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
I remember like a week after I got I'm gonna call it a cubicle job. A week after I got my cubicle job, they said that sitting down for like most of the day takes years off of your life. I'm like, oh my god. And I just got this job. I'm like, I'm gonna be sitting down slowly. Like I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
And especially, and then where I worked, I used to work at the county. Like they would always like send emails, and like, oh, this person retired, that person retired, and they'd be like, this person passed away. I'm like, oh crap. Then this person passed away. And then it's like, oh crap, like all these people are passing away. Of course they're older, but this idea of me sitting at a cubicle for the next 30 years, like depressed me so bad. Like I could not see myself, and it's not good for your health. I gained weight. I started getting heavier. Like all that is just like, this is not for me. I can't be sitting down.
Yeah, man. Like when I first started my career, I work in IT, and when I first started that, I was very fortunate. The first company I started had like their own ergonomics division, so they were kind of like they would come in, make sure everything was set up correctly, so you were like standing straight. Your legs were at like a 90-degree angle. You were making sure you're always like this, not like that, and not like that. So like. But into those people that can't necessarily see the video, but like what I'm saying is like they're not slouching over, while typing and making sure that all your joints are at neutral position. That way, it doesn't really make your muscles as stiff. So I had that luxury in that company. So by the time I left and went to the next one, I didn't follow that, and then sure enough, I had plantar fasciitis. My calf was really tight. I remember one time when I was driving from LA all the way to San Diego because we were just going on a trip, my mom and I came back on the drive back. I couldn't move my leg anymore, dude. Like I had to like I got out and like I almost fell because I was able to move it like to the side, but as soon as I touched the concrete, like I didn't have enough weight on it. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And like slowly the feeling came back, and that's when I joined the UFC gym, and I started, and it was just by a pure coincidence. The guy was like, dude, we have a special right now for personal trainers. And I'm going in there like an ass thinking, oh yeah, I know everything. I'm good. And then he comes in, he goes, oh, so do you got any pain? Like the guy that was setting me up with the trainer, he's like, do you have any pain anywhere with so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, on my leg. Like I have it on my lower leg. Oh, that's plantar fasciitis. So we need to make sure that this, I got the perfect trainer for you. So he set me up with the trainer. The first like 2 sessions were nothing but stretching and correction of posture, dude. And dude, I was just like, I'm going nuts here. Like I want to like train. Like why am I spending so much money? And I mean, it was cheap, relatively speaking, but like, why am I spending so much money on this dude for 2 sessions where I'm not doing anything? And that was, but now to this day, now that I know how to stretch, where to stretch, it's like, it's been amazing. Cause like I go home and I see my brother's in back pain, and I'm like, just fine, refreshed and everything. Like I'm able to play with my nephew and niece a lot more, than just like, my dad, who's a little bit tired because, and hasn't really been keeping up with the stretching. So it's a lot of different things, dude. And that also kind of contributes to mental health because I remember when I was, stretching out and my muscles were all nice and loose, like I just felt better, like, and I was able to walk better,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
it was a lot more
I think
confident.
we were talking about the other day. I was telling you how like 'cause you work out in the mornings, which I see that like it's motivating. Motivating when you see stuff like that, or or I reference Jocko. Like you see Jocko, that dude's up at 4 in the morning every time. Like it's motivating. It's also like a kick in the ass. Like, hey man, get your lazy butt up. Get in the morning, get your workout in. But yeah, definitely working out in the morning. Like, it's very very rewarding. Like you start the day off like I already accomplished something. And
Yeah.
you feel good. You're awake. And I read like a quote that said like basically wake up before sunrise 365 days a year and see if nothing has changed. And I was like, oh, that probably something will
Yeah.
change.
Something will change. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like, dude, like, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be like, a serious workout, like, doing kettlebells, like at a rate of like 50 miles an hour or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be anything like that, really. Like, something as simple as like me, I can't stand running, dude. Like I hate running. I hate running. So like I'm not like you see Cameron Haynes and like you see that dude and that dude runs marathons. Yeah, exactly. It makes me feel like crap and just like, oh man, like I'm a lazy piece of crap. And
I think they literally do it because they hate it the most. They're like I know Goggins is like I hate running, and that's probably why he does it. Like that dude's
David Goggins, yeah, he's another good inspirational guy. Yeah,
Goggins. Like I think that dude is like I hate running. I'm gonna run, and like he just I think he likes punishing himself. The dude likes to punish himself.
Well, it's one of those things that like like it's kind of like when you're building muscle, like you got to break it apart. You got to break it apart slowly and then rebuild it. And it's the same thing with like, I mean, the way he's going about it in terms of like his overall health and like it's kind of a weird thing because I don't want to like correlate and at least make the association of that with mental health because I mean you can have a serious mental breakdown and like things can happen really bad and when you have that mental breakdown and I don't want to necessarily say that but like when you go through a lot of stuff like you're more mentally adaptive if you can overcome and things like that and like even just like you said like getting up and being able to say like well I was able to get up the entire week at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. or whatever, like, and go run or go walk. Like, it could be something as simple as walking, dude, and, like, just start simple, right?
Yeah, I think as far as that mental stress, like, say, you're about to, you might lose your job. Like, that's like a mental stressor, right? I think when these situations like Goggins and, what was the reference to, but basically anybody who works out, like, they're forcing mental stress upon themselves. And like that's like a good exercise because it kind of strengthens your mind. So when life throws something at you, you're able to just overcome it a lot easier because you basically force yourself into a mentally stressed situation like working out. That's like it's an easy way to stress yourself out mentally, like to wake up in the morning to that discipline. Basically, it's stressful to like force yourself to do something like that. And I think that's probably one of the ways. For as far as mental health, like you need to work out your mind. You need to apply pressure. I think that Joe Rogan talks about that. He goes, everybody needs to like there's physical, like as far as working out, and then there's like mental stresses that you need to have to make sure your mind is healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, like a lot of people when COVID-19 hit, they're locked in their house. Like this is stresses that were forced upon them by outside forces, and that was a lot for some people to handle. Like they couldn't handle that. But I'm thinking if you were someone who is used to testing yourself in that way, maybe you would handle it a lot better. I would think. I mean, I feel maybe.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's not necessarily one size fits all. But I mean, because like there's some people that with a kick in the ass, they'll be motivated. There's some people you do that to, you'll drive them worse into that hole. Yeah, you'll break them way worse. So it's like that's why like I don't like going by like these self-help books because it's like it's tailored to one specific thing. And I mean it's cool if you fit that that type of person or if that's the way you can get motivated, perfectly fine. But the problem is that there could be like this isn't one of the things that I feel like sometimes we can fall in traps by like. We see like a motivational, not necessarily Goggins or like Cameron Haynes or even Joe Rogan, like, but we see like some other people that are trying to be motivators and they are like, if you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you'll never be successful. I mean, okay, if it's in a similar situation where you came from and you did the same thing, sure, maybe, but like, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same thing. Like, it's not going to be the same thing for anybody really. Like, regardless of income level, even like people of like we're in the same income level, they react differently to different things. That's kind of what makes us unique as humans. We're not necessarily all one like giant monolith where we all react to the same thing. Sure, there might be something that makes us react. I mean, makes a good amount of us react the same, but that's not always the case. So, like,
Right.
and like I think another pitfall that we can fall into is like when we start like respect. I mean, this is specifically to working out, and I know we kind of went on a little tangent. We'll go back to the other two factors of mental health, but I know like for example when it comes to working out, like sometimes a mistake that people can do is like they look at somebody that they're aspiring to be. And it's like you don't have to necessarily aspire to be that person. Like you can follow what they're saying, but don't necessarily like expect to see that exact same result, but just with your face on it.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like it goes for guys and girls, but I would imagine it'd be worse for women. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like you have like look at this person. This guy looks really fit and all stuff, and he does like 100 like pull-ups in like 20 seconds or something ridiculous things like that. And it's like, well, I mean, you might be able to get to that point, but you shouldn't really stress about getting to that point. Your goal should be first actually doing the workouts and getting that process going, and then from there, yes, and then slowly set up goals. Just because I mean, if you're the type of person who want to reach for the stars right off the bat, hey, go for it. If it gets you results, who am I to tell you to stop, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I feel like it's just because like you have marketing of like different like supplements. Like you see these persons, like these people that are like all ripped, and it's like try this, like this one of 5 secrets like to get you shredded without any work. I'm like, what? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, like the Bowflex. You those a Bowflex. You want to get you ripped, or like the little pull-up bar. They have some like bodybuilder dude just doing a little pull-up bar. Like, look, and basically it's like, yeah, they're insinuating like, hey, if you just do these pull-ups with our special pull-up bar, you're gonna get jacked like this dude. But that's not. Yeah, that's just. I think they just know that's what works. If you've just been sitting, if you've been a person who's not been in sports or in physical activity your whole life, but then one day you're like, I'm fed up, I want to get in shape. Maybe one of those advertisements would work for you. Like you think that works, but I mean anybody who's at least done some minor working out, like they know, like no, you're not just gonna get this pull-up bar and become jacked and get abs and like get legs and all that.
Yeah.
But it works it works to sell the product. That's what it does a lot. So that's their goal.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, you're going to be hearing this. I mean, the viewers and listeners are going to be hearing this a lot throughout the podcast. It's not one size fits all. Like it might work with a few people, and that's okay. And some people might try and realize that it doesn't work. That's also okay too. Like I mean, you just haven't found your way. I mean, the most important thing is not to give up. Like like you've heard me say this on like my Instagram. It's kind of just like. You don't necessarily have to go 100 miles an hour the entire time of the journey. You can go 30, you can go 15, you can go 5, you can go 1. As long as you're constantly moving. That's the whole important thing. Like you're not in a competition unless it's with yourself. Like as long as you're, even if you're one step away from the day before, I mean, one step further than the day before, there's already progress and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like that's what I kind of just preach nowadays. Cause it's like, people like look at this other person like I'm kind of like seeing like in the social media world where it's like, oh well, this person already has this many followers. Well, you don't know, like maybe they found a niche, maybe they're paying for their followers, maybe they've been doing it for like 10 years, 15 years, like you don't know, like so it's like for you to compare yourself to such a high standard and really make that your focus could potentially stress yourself out too, and you don't want that, because if you want to do something that you love, you need to go at your own pace, otherwise you'll get burnt out.
I think there's a quote that says like envy is a thief of joy, or something like that.
Envy is a thief of joy?
Envy is a thief of joy.
Oh, okay, I never heard that one.
So is it envy or so? But basically, you look at what someone else has, and you're no longer happy with what you have. So basically, yeah. So you may have I woke up this morning, I walked a mile, then you see some dude who ran 10 miles, and just because they ran 10 miles, your 1 mile is not good enough. Now you're unhappy. Like you can't compare yourself to other people in that way, because you're just doing your own joy. by doing that.
Yeah, one of my
So
grade school teachers, I think in high school, was saying something similar, but he didn't say that saying like, envy is the thief of joy. Like, but he basically said like because when he was trying to tell us he was trying to tell us that money can't really buy happiness, and the example he used was like, well, if you make like if you're not making anything, you're poor, you're making like 30,000 a year. Like you're gonna like if you're in an area where other people around you making 50,000 a year, you're not gonna be happy. But if you're in an area where other people are making 30,000 as well, you'll be a little bit more happy. But even then, like if you get to the point where you're making 100,000, like you look at the 50,000 mark, you're like, oh well, I'm good because like I'm making way more than that. But you surround yourself with people that are making $200,000, then you start kind of like wondering like, oh well, maybe I'm not doing as well, and then that kind of just again strips your joy. Like, and I'm not saying that money can buy happiness, right? Because I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's kind of a weird topic, and it's kind of, I guess, somewhat controversial nowadays. But yeah, yeah.
having money controversy, yeah.
I mean, it's the reality. Like, you got to have money to be able to survive, and then survival is not the same as living. There's two different. There's a difference.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
but tying it back to mental health. So, I mean, yeah, like we went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it was still a good discussion overall. But the other thing is like the drug use, and again, I hate to bash on California because that's where I grew up, but you look at San Francisco, you look at LA, and
Oh my god.
it's so bad. Like it really is bad.
I swear. I live in the Inland Empire. I live here in Ontario. So that's the Inland Empire. I'm like 30 minutes away from LA, and then there's Orange County, which like, I drive down into Orange County a lot of times, do business out there, and like the things that I see is just crazy. But I was talking to someone else about like the homeless problem. Like, what do you do with these people? Because I was driving, I was stopped at a light, and I looked over, I saw a man with his shirt off. He had no shirt. He was laying on the ground, and he was wearing sweats. His sweats were down, midway down his thigh, and he had his hand down his pants. Basically, he was jacking off on the sidewalk.
Ew.
Right there, middle of the day. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And obviously, the dude's not all there.
Yeah.
And what do you do with a guy like that? Like, obviously, what he was doing is an illegal act, so he can get arrested for that. But he's mentally ill. And he's just out on the street. And, like, what are you supposed to do to a person like that, Like,
Yeah, I mean,
first, like, just the other day, I was once again, I stopped at a light, I look over, and there's a guy at a bus stop. He's sitting on the bench. He has a beer in his hand, and it's just like dribbling down his mouth, and he's just yelling at nothing. He's just yelling and talking. There's no one there. He's just not the traffic. You can tell he's not anybody. He's just talking to himself loudly, yelling. He's just crazy dude. He's drinking a beer. It's just dripping all down his face. Like, he's not even really drinking it. Like, he's just yelling at nothing.
Yeah, man. I get you. It's really sad. It's sad because again, like like you said, what do you do? Like, that question comes a lot, and there's some people that think they have the answer and either make it worse or just don't do anything really, and it's really tough.
The doing nothing is basically what's been happening. I guess the government doesn't have a solution, so they just do nothing. But I believe when they some law they passed here in California that allowed basically people to be homeless and like live on the sidewalks. Like, before, you couldn't set up a tent on the sidewalk, and that was why it was a lot less tents. Like, there was, I think, a special force with the police that came in. You had your tent or your shopping cart on the sidewalk, they'd remove it, and then you'd have to come to like the station and pick up your shopping cart or your tent. And then someone passed a law allowing that. Like, you can. It's not. They said it's not illegal to be homeless, and that may be true, but I think the illegality of living on the public right of way is what basically made the big difference, because now they can be all over the sidewalks. They block off whole streets because the public right of way is now where they get to live, So
Yeah. So really quick, so to all the listeners, we kind of skipped the whole thing about drug abuse, and we're kind of just going more into like the mental illness type of thing. We'll get back to the drug abuse in a little bit, but and when we're talking about the law, we're not necessarily bringing it up in the sense of like having a political discussion, just in terms of like what the events took place. Just so everybody keeps that in mind. And I do. You're right, Anthony, and all that did happen. That was a law that did get basically written into the law. And another thing too, where I found the correlation of where this started is when you look at like how many mental institutions were closed down in the state of California, and you know, it's one of those things where them closing down can get into politics, but I just want to bring that up in the sense of like that happened, and I think right around that when that happened, you start seeing the homelessness grow and grow because I mean
That
like
was in the when? That was like in the 80s, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
That,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah. A lot of that stuff started progressing there, and it's just one of those things where, like you said, what do you do at that point? Like, some people, like a lot of families, may not have the financial resources to deal with a mentally ill person. Others might not have like the mental capacity for themselves to be able to deal with
Yeah.
that. It's really a struggle that I mean I'm not sure if anyone really has a solution for, but because like you can have schizophrenia, you can have a bunch of other different things
Yeah.
like I mean what do you do with those people like without the right amount of resources? So it's really difficult to really say like, oh, with this magic wand I'm gonna just wipe them all out. Like no, it doesn't. I mean, not necessarily wipe them out like kill them, but just like
Yeah.
you know, fix them and like.
That's a good idea, but no, yeah.
I'm not talking about like Thanos doing the Thanos on all the homeless
Yeah,
people.
snap your
No,
fingers and we're gone. Yeah.
no, no, I'm not talking
Yeah.
about that. But it's like it's tough, man. Like honestly, like it's. I mean, I think the best thing that we can do, like in terms of like just a regular common person, like just don't see them as like something that's scary. I mean, obviously, like don't necessarily like you know,
Even that though, but some of them are harmless, some of them are not. I mean, like I said, the example I was giving of the guy laying down on the sidewalk doing what he was doing. Like if you're a family driving in the car, your family driving in the car, like that's a guy on the sidewalk doing what he's doing. Like it's in your face, like
yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's hard to really say.
Yeah, and if you want to go to the park, with your family, you see like needles in the park, or dudes like camping out in the bathroom at the park. You can't even use the bathroom at the park because there's people living in the bathroom, or they have their tents over there behind some trees. Like it kind of encroaches on your, I guess, the way you enjoy life. If you see all these other people with poverty, I guess I don't know. It's like you can't. To a certain point, you can avoid it until it grows, and it grows like it has been growing, and eventually it'll encroach in your way of life. So
Yeah.
they have to find a solution.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm more talking about in the sense of like, for example, like you look at it and you see it as a problem of like mental health, and you don't just see them as like abominations of like the earth that just need to go away. Like, yeah, like you need to stay away, like obviously to protect your family, like in that example that you gave, and you got to be aware of that. Obviously, like that goes without saying, but it's kind of like I mean, like if we go back to the example before where people were saying like, I don't want to see it. Like, I know it's happening, but I don't want to see it. Well, okay, but like you're saying it from a standpoint of like, well, I mean, you're almost saying like they're not necessarily human. Like, it's a human person that has a mental health issue, which is kind of the sad thing to think about. But that's just what it is, right? Like, they did nothing wrong. I mean, a lot of mental health issues like that, like mental illnesses, are basically chemical imbalances in your brain, and you have really no control over.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of brings up another question. Like, what do you think the roles of the role of psychedelics and even like or prescription drugs? Like, what do you think? Like, do they have a role in our society in terms of affecting this? Like, do you think anything at all in that subject or?
What, second psychedelics?
Well, so there's first the psychedelics, right, and then second the pharmaceuticals. Really, like like you see the commercials on TV a lot, and some of them might help. Like I know a couple of people that are like on Prozac and stuff, and they're perfectly fine. Some
Right.
people have to double up or even take another different prescription just to make sure that the first one doesn't give them any kind of suicidal thoughts or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I
It's
mean,
intense.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's intense.
Um, so as far as pharmaceuticals and psychedelics, I definitely do believe that there's been some abuse as far as like pharmaceuticals to a certain extent, but actually it's a put up, but like I keep thinking about like schizophrenia. Now schizophrenia is it's interesting because genetic. You could have a schizophrenia in your family, and when it pronounces itself, it could be triggered, by the use of psychedelics or, certain pharmaceuticals. Like some people who like they have a history of schizophrenia in the family. If they use, just smoke weed, marijuana, like that could trigger schizophrenia earlier in their age, and now you're schizophrenic in your 20s because I guess it pronounces itself in your 20s. That's when schizophrenia is triggered in your 20s. So it's kind of you got to think like some people become mentally ill from using certain substances. However, like I think of like soldiers have been, or people with PTSD, how they view that now there are certain studies they're using certain psychedelics. I think they're using like MDMA or other things to actually treat the trauma they experience. So there's definitely a role in helping some people, and on the flip side, some people get triggered and affected negatively from that. But I'm all for natural remedies. I prefer more natural than pharmaceuticals, but
Right. Right. I mean, if you can like smoke the plant, why do you need to take like a, what is it? It's like, I don't know, not metformin. What is it? Methamphetamine or anything like that, right? Like, yeah, you know, yeah. And I mean, with the psychedelics and stuff like that, I mean, I know the only reason why I bring that up is because I know like you hear in different states that are trying to use that as a way of treating PTSD and and things like that. So, like you said, if there's a safe way that that can be implemented, why not, right? Like why not? I know there's a stigma around that a little bit. But at this point, like in certain situations, we have to consider, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Either like I try this, it doesn't work, or I just keep going with my life and end up like taking my own life or something like that, And that's kind of scary because, I mean, like these mental health and all these mental illnesses, like there could be some where people hurt themselves, and it's kind of sad. But even like with the pharmaceuticals, I mean, the only thing that I don't like about that is the fact that they're basically advertised like if it's almost like Skittles or something, like on TV. They got so much airtime where it's like you hear like sometimes like, oh, are you like sad, depressed, whatever, so and so, well, take this, it'll make your life a lot better. And then that's all they say about the benefits. And then for the next 20 to 30 seconds,
side effects, suicidal thoughts, ulcers, internal bleeding. You're like, what?
Yeah, man. And that's the part that like gets me. Like, I'm not against like pharmaceuticals, but like, how is it that you're advertising it like more than the doctor? Like how, like that's what really upsets me in a way, because again, it's not that I'm like anti-science or nobody really can take this position and necessarily be anti-science. It's just like, no, like we're talking about like a human's life, a human's mental health, and
I think when it comes to that, I think most like pharmaceuticals, it's revenue based, so it's about the money. Money talks,
Yeah.
So if they can sell their product and make the most amount of money, that's really their goal. Like it's not, they don't prioritize the patient. They're basically just whatever makes the most money, and that's what they're throwing the most of their research and development into. And I feel like MDMA or these other psychedelics that they're doing studies on, they just don't see the revenue in that, or so that's probably it just comes down to money, and there's no money in that, because if you like, for instance, we'll say marijuana, weed, like if they see all the health benefits of marijuana or weed, like they can't monopolize weed. Like weed is out there, it's a plant, like you can't just say that plant belongs to us and us only. So I guess it just comes to money. It's a financial thing, like a lot of these things.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with like drug addiction too. I mean, that can. I'm pretty sure we can link that to money too. Like, and a person that is meant like, I feel like me personally, there's two types of addiction. You have your physical addiction, you have your mental addiction. I'm not sure which one is harder to kick. Like because something, there's a saying, or I mean, not even a saying, I'm sorry. So this is from a comedy show, and it was meant to be comedic, but I don't think truer words have ever been spoken. Like there's the thing where it's like, well, sometimes the prisons that are harder to break out of are the ones without bars, and that was again meant to be purely for comedy purposes. But when I hear that, I think mental prisons, which in some regard,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to break out of a mental
Right.
prison than it is, to break out of a physical one. So
Yeah.
I think in that from that standpoint, like it's harder to kick off a mental addiction to something like heroin and things like that. And like I think you see that in LA to a certain degree because some people are not mentally stable for whatever reason, loss of job, things like that, and you get it on the street. You're sharing needles now, like and people are sharing needles and stuff like that. And it's kind of bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a complicated issue, and it's like, well, what do we do with that? Like, it's complicated. I mean, in those kind of situations, for those type of situations, it's kind of hard to really. Some people like if you take them out to a sport, they'll end up like I've seen people quit drinking from like because they dedicated themselves to like playing a sport, doing something outside, even fishing or something like that. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you seen this is a documentary on Netflix. This guy named Khalif Browder.
I haven't
It's
seen
about
it.
so this kid in New York who got locked up, and I guess he was in jail for like over a year without being charged, and then like he was abused by guards and all that, and then when he got out of jail, they sued the state for basically imprisoning him for over a year without giving him a fair trial, and in the end he committed suicide. But when he got out, like one of the things that they were trying to do to help him, basically rehabilitate from what the trauma that he experienced from being in jail and getting beat up and just this terrible stuff that he had to endure, was they were actually going to take him out, I believe, to like Colorado. Like there was a program where they take troubled youth out into the wilderness, just to spend time in the wilderness, and that kind of helps rehabilitate people. And it's like a calming effect, and it's good for your mental health. And just I was thinking about the example you said right now. You had a friend who would start playing baseball or sports, and I think if you're having like mental stress, I think like one of the first things you might want to try before you turn to pharmaceuticals and like that is just physical activity. Like it's free. You could do a couple push-ups, you can do a burpee. Like that's free. You can do that right now. Give that a try.
Yeah.
For a week or two. And then, that's not doing it. Then you could turn to, pharmaceuticals if that's what your doctor prescribes you. But I think a lot of people, when they get, they start having mental health issues, they kind of collapse on themselves when, that's something, one of the first steps you can do, just break a sweat, break a sweat doing something.
Yeah, there's no enemy that knows you best than yourself, really. I mean, It's kind of sounds kind of cliche, but I mean, it's kind of true most of the time. Like, it's like you know your best weakness, so you know how to like hurt yourself the most. Like, even though it might be like, what is it, subconscious, but like I feel like that's the case a lot of times. And I mean, that's kind of the inspiration because again, like COVID hit, I was going stir crazy here at home. I had a fishing pole. That was the only thing I was able to do. Went fishing, and it definitely helped me out. So, I mean, again, like I said in the beginning of the episode, like we're not necessarily mental experts, but if somebody can benefit from what we're talking about, take something positive, and or at least react to like in the sense that I didn't know that I was going down that path. Maybe I can try something else and start looking like if for whatever suits their needs and whatever makes them feel better, like. Yeah, I'll be happy with seeing that, right? So that was my main motivation behind this podcast, and I'm hoping that I could continue having these discussions with people. And definitely, like I mean, we're approaching the hour mark, but I definitely want to keep having you on more frequently, and because we didn't. I mean, mental health is such a huge topic.
I want to ask you, how did you get into fishing?
How did I get into fishing?
Because I've only been fishing one time, and that was in Echo Park, right?
Yeah.
I was down at Echo Park, and like some dude was just fishing. He's like, I asked him, like, I was a kid. I was probably like 8, 9 years old. I was like, hey, how do you fish? He's like, this is what you do. The dude had like a big thing of Coke. He was just drinking Coke. He had a big drinking Coke and just fishing. And I was like, well, how do you do this? And then I think the week after that, I went to like Big Five or something like that. Got some poles and tried to fish in Echo Park Lake. So I don't think there's any fishing there right now. I don't know. It's a little Echo Park. It's in LA. So, and even now, I wouldn't go down there. LA is not safe. LA. But so I want to know like your journey. How did you start?
Again, so COVID was the best motivator. So the pull that I had was recommended by one of my friends that got me into fishing. He was on the podcast on episode 2. He got me into fishing. My very first fishing trip was with him. It was out when I was still in California, out in Newport Beach, and I loved it. The only problem is that I kept on procrastinating to actually, do it more often. So fast forward to COVID, like I was just like, you know what, I have a fishing pole, and like the very first thing when I cast it, I thought I knew better, and like I casted it out, and the type of bait that I was using was meant to kind of like wiggle through the water, and I put a weight on it, so it just basically got it. Like I wasn't supposed to put the weight. The bait was supposed to do all the work, and I put a weight on it, and it just sank. So so that was the first attempt, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna regroup myself, and then I just
Did you know at that point like wait, there's something wrong? Or you're like, why is nothing happening?
yeah. I knew at that point. I was like, wait, this feels funny. I'm not sure if this is even like is supposed to the way it's supposed to move. So basically, I stopped, regrouped, and started watching. Because the thing that in a way that gave me the time to do this was the gyms being closed. I used to go to the gym like 2.5 hours a day. So once those were closed, that 2.5 hours became just nothing but watching YouTube videos on how to cast, how to use a spinning reel, how to use a bait casting reel, what are the differences between a bait casting reel and a spinning reel. And it was just nonstop, like YouTube. I've gotten good compliments in the sense that people think that I've been fishing for a lot longer than what I have. And I just tell them, like, honestly, it was just YouTube. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The internet is somewhat free. Like some people can pay as low as like $40 a month. Some people pay a little bit more, but I just did that, and I was just so focused. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Check you out. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the next thing this past year was actually I wanted to get into hunting. Like I wanted to go hunting like I guess this is the hunting months. I believe it starts in August, I believe. But I wanted to hunt here in California. So I already had a rifle. So I basically started the same thing, YouTube, and like, how do you hunt? I'm a city boy, city boy. I don't have I think my dad, he used to hunt when he used to live in Mexico, but like, he's like older now. He does real estate. He doesn't go hunting, So I was kind of like, how do you get into something like this? Like I don't know anybody who hunts. But yeah, same thing. It's kind of just hopefully, I guess not this year, but next year I want to go on my first hunt and see what I can get out here. But
you need to watch that Meat Eater podcast and that Meat Eater show on Netflix.
Oh yeah. Okay, taking notes. What does he got? What's the gear? What's the camo?
Yeah.
What kind of rifle?
Yeah, because
that was actually a big inspiration too. Yeah.
Because you're gonna learn a lot of that when you do your hunting course. Because they'll teach you all that. They'll teach you.
I took it already. I already took the hunting course.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
My little card, the hunting. I got that already. So basically, I can just go out there. I need to buy the tag. I really just need to buy the tag and go out there. But I don't know what I'm doing.
There's a place close to where you're at. Shoot, I'll send you the link. It's basically you can go, you can hunt you can hunt hogs and goats. Different type. I think it might be Corona. Yeah, it might be. It's somewhere in that area.
It's penned in, right?
I think so.
Yeah. I feel like that's cool.
It's the closest one to you, and you can hunt boar, you can hunt different types of like goat. So they have different species there, and it's basically like a huge piece of land where technically I think it might be enclosed. I'm not sure, but they just kind of roam around like if they were wild because there's enough space for them to go, and you just kind of it's kind of like a guided trip.
Food's there, and they just go to the food, right? Did you go there?
No, not yet. I haven't gone there yet, but the reason why I know about it is because I'm researching that because I'm trying to get a tag myself, but now that I'm out of state, it's a lot more expensive.
Oh,
yeah.
Technically, you're in both states. You're in California and Texas, right? How many times did you come over here a year?
4 or 5 times.
Yeah, basically over here already.
Yeah. Well, I think at this place, it might be the same amount of price even if I'm out of state. I just have to, make the trip to go. But
it's private land, maybe.
Yeah. But I just need my hunting license, so I need to make sure I get that. And I haven't gotten it yet, but I have done my research on that, and I can shoot pretty well with the bolt action rifle. It's probably the most accurate thing I can shoot with.
Yeah.
Because I love shooting bolt action rifles just because I don't know, like I'm not like gonna say that I like to torture myself, but I do like to work a little bit harder for certain things sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah,
That's a good quality. Yeah.
yeah,
Doesn't come easy. So, wait. So your rifles are in Texas, all right?
yeah.
And you have guns in California?
No,
Oh, so you'd have to take it from Texas to California?
yeah, I would have to transport it over there.
It's cool. What about? I saw you using the boat. The boat too. When did you get into that?
That was here. One of my buddies, like he's like, "Hey, let's go to Bass Pro." I'm like, "All right, let's go." And I didn't realize that he wanted to go shoot his compound bow, and since he has longer arms, his bow I couldn't really shoot it very well. So I was like, you know what? I'm buying, I'm buying one, and right then and there, yeah,
Yeah. Hey, I've never fired one of those. How is it? How does it feel like? I know, like I hear about like the pounds of like pull, like how many pounds is it? How does that work?
So the amount of pounds is basically the tension that you put on the string, right? And so I'm currently set up at 55, and that is on the lower end, but it should be enough to hunt quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go higher, you can hunt like bear and other bigger animals. But
Snap.
yeah,
Do you intend to hunt bear?
I do intend to go bow hunting at one point in my life. I do intend to do that just because I want to try it, and I do love shooting a bow. It does get exhausting though. Like you need it, like you're gonna get like massive traps, dude, from doing that because a lot of it is like pulling it back with your back muscles, holding it there, and then you just let go of your because you have a trigger. You have a trigger, like you have a trigger on the bow, and you just let go with your index finger, And but the stability comes in holding like maybe like what 10 15 pounds straight in front of you like that, and then your back, yeah, because like it's the weight of the bow basically.
All your back muscles, huh?
All your back muscles, your forearms, and your shoulders basically like that. It's all that.
I
So
like that. It sounds like the weapon of a man. I like this.
so that's why like if you see me like doing a lot of kettlebell swings, a lot of kettlebell like cleans and stuff like that, it's all for that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm training all for that. Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, so that
So when are you gonna? Okay, so you haven't gone hunting yet, but you're gonna go hunting when you come back to California.
I might do it out here. It's so here it's a little bit more expensive because there's a lot more private land than there is public.
Right.
But you can get you can get almost be guaranteed like an animal like to a certain degree because depending on how well they manage it. But my end goal is to basically get a piece of land on my own where I can hunt turkeys and deer myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
So
it.
so then when you come over and visit, we can just go hunting.
I want it so bad. Well, I thought they had like a wild pig problem over there in Texas.
We do.
I heard like you don't even do you have to even get a tag for those? Because I think you can just kill as many as you want. You could get as many as you want over there, I believe, right?
Well, yeah. There's no tag, but if you're shooting on private land, you don't necessarily need a license. That was something I think happened recently. Like you don't necessarily need a license anymore because they're that much of a problem. And one time when I went out to the forest, I can go to a pond to fish. On my way over there, I saw a farm or a ranch that had just like 7 hogs, like giant size hogs, like maybe like 140 pounds, like 7 of them just lined up dead because I guess, whoever, I don't know if somebody came in and shot them or they shot them themselves, but yeah, like it's a problem.
Problem. So that's a good start right there. They're free, right?
Yeah.
You gotta pay the land, but that seems like an interesting situation.
Yeah. So yeah. And boar, I'm more inclined to to hunt them with a rifle than with a bow. But yeah, it'd be pretty nice if I can get them with the bow as well.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're a little bit over the hour limit, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, I'm trying to keep them at an hour, but if it go over a little bit, it's perfectly fine. So, any last thoughts?
Politics.
Yeah. We almost did, like at the beginning, like in the middle of it, where I'm like, I feel like we're steering towards there, but I think we did a good job.
We did a good job, yeah.
Yeah. So, any last thoughts that you might have, like for anybody else that's listening, whether it's financial or strictly mental health?
Mental health, working out, that's good. But because another thing what you said is like when you wanted to know about you're curious about like fishing, like you threw your whole everything into it. You start watching videos and like you threw your whole mind into it. Like that kind of focus, that has to be helpful too. Like if you're stressing about these other things, you throw yourself completely. Some people throw themselves into work, but in the situation, say you don't have work, I mean, you throw yourself into some other kind of project and just put your mind into that. You can really block out a lot of these negative things. Like for me, when this all hit, I started like focusing all my attention to other streams of income and the stock market. You wanted to learn about fishing, so all this time to like that kind of approach is. I think it's a big, it's a good way to have it, But that was just kind of a small little takeaway.
Yeah.
I need to look at some fishing videos too. You need to send me all the fishing videos. I'm gonna like figure this one out. I'm gonna figure this one out. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely plan on putting more up on my YouTube. I have like 3 that I need to edit. I also have some cooking stuff that I need to throw on there, mostly smoking meat and stuff. But I need to throw some stuff out there.
Yeah, food stuff. That's right.
Yeah.
Plan coming along. Yeah.
Yeah, food stuff, man. I got all that stuff going.
Like we got the podcast going. You said you're gonna start doing your fishing. And you're gonna have your own products, right? You're gonna start selling your own like fishing.
Yeah. Eventually, I'm gonna start getting into something, either possibly making my own type of lures, or just something. I'm not entirely sure yet, but we're looking into it.
Like a cooking show, right? Cooking. You're gonna show yourself cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, dude, a cookbook would be nice. Yeah, a cookbook would be nice. Yeah, why not, dude? I mean, I just gotta make sure I get myself out there, and most importantly, don't stop moving.
Yeah, you gotta keep it going.
Yeah.
It's, as far as YouTube and stuff like that, there's this guy who's like a YouTube nerd, and like he started like multiple channels, and he said the key is to get at least 33 videos up. Get 33 videos up, and then you kind of go back and look at the analytics of like information. But he said don't stop till you get to 33. After 33, if you feel discouraged, then you stop. But 33 is like, you get that, you have enough data by 33 to see if you want to, what you want to do. So
yeah, that sounds like a solid plan. Yeah. So also, where can anybody find you if they want to like know more about like
Oh yeah, you can find me on IG and Twitter. It's Sharper Ant, all one word. And yeah, I'm up there. I have a YouTube channel, same thing, Sharper Ant. But basically, all I put up is the day-to-day of like a car dealer, what I do when I'm at these auctions, when I'm buying cars. But I'm gonna put up more stuff as far as for entrepreneurship and other sources of income, and people could kind of see other ways I make money. So just get ideas, motivation, or just egg me on, cool, support.
Yeah.
But Sharper Ant. IG, YouTube, and Twitter.
Yeah, and at the very least, follow those that are listening still. Follow Sharper Ant on Instagram. He puts a lot of motivational posts in his stories. I think that's a good benefit as well. And yeah, like if you want to support him, go ahead. You already know where to go. Drop a like, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah. Follow, yeah. And
if you want to talk mess about California,
well, we'll save that for a different.
It just has a couple problems. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So you guys heard it. So feel free to follow Sharper Ant on YouTube, Twitter, and most importantly, IG. So I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. One of the last things I want to just say, mental health is definitely multifaceted. So if you have any other issues, I mean, if you want, just go ahead and talk to people around you, make sure you're open. And if you have any other things that you need to you need to address, you consult a physician. They're the experts. We're just here to talk nuance. And we tried our best just to live through this crazy reality that we're in. And just if you guys take anything from this that benefits you guys, that makes me more than happy. And that's my whole goal here. So once again, remember that a prison doesn't necessarily have to have bars in order to not being able to escape. But, again, do your best. All right, guys. Well, again, Anthony, thank you for, volunteering your time. I'll definitely have you back again for sure.
Of course, yeah. All right.
Take care. Talk to you guys later. Bye.